All right, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Browns Huddle Podcast. Today I'm joined by special guest Jordan Zirm. Jordan does social media content editing for the Checkdown. He was also involved in the Tomahawk Show with Andrew Hawkins and future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas. And if that isn't enough, he's also a huge Browns fan. So we're really excited to have Jordan on the show. Jordan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the invite to come on. And yeah, man. Anytime I can talk Browns, I jump at it. So yeah, appreciate the invite.
Awesome. Well, before we get into some Browns talk, I thought maybe you can share with the listeners your involvement with the Checkdown and maybe what got some of the things you guys are up to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, obviously, it's a bit of a weird off season with everything going on, but yeah, so I've been, this will be my second season with the Checkdown. We're sort of like, I like to refer to us as the NFL accounts cooler younger brother. We can, we do fun stuff. We're posting highlights. We're posting, players goofing around on the sidelines. We're posting fashion stuff from players. So we kind of, it's kind of the intersection of the NFL and the culture around it. So it's a lot of fun, very player driven, player centric. And yeah, so this will be my second season coming up with them. And yeah, the preseason got canceled and this off season has been, very quiet because guys haven't been really, when they were off by themselves, usually, we're getting videos of them working out and them doing stuff with teammates on the side and stuff. And obviously that hasn't happened. So I'm very much looking forward to hopefully some new footage of guys playing football and practicing with each other. And, now that training camp's going on and yeah, we'll hopefully get into the season in September. And, but it's going to be, it's going to be weird. It's going to be very different. So it's going to be a challenge, but yeah, I'm excited to kind of see where it goes.
No doubt. I actually saw one of the videos recently, Saquon Barkley jumping out of the swimming pool. That guy's a beast, man. Yeah,
it's pretty outrageous. Some of the stuff that they make look like the easiest thing in the world. Like it's no problem at all. So yeah, Saquon is a different breed of human. He does things not many people athletically can do. So he's fun to watch.
No doubt. You've also obviously you were involved with the Tomahawk Show, and for us Browns fans, you were working with two former Browns, Andrew Hawkins, of course, he played with the Browns for a little while, and the future Hall of Famer Joe Thomas. You got to work side by side with him. Tell me what that experience was like.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty surreal. I think as a kid growing up. Really only knowing this sort of second iteration of the Browns, like Joe Thomas is the Browns for, guys like us. And so, getting to just like talk to him as like a coworker was pretty wild. And I think the coolest thing was like both him and Hawk are two of the nicest people you're like ever going to meet. So, they sometimes tell you like don't meet your heroes because they're probably not going to be as nice to you as you think, but like Joe Thomas and Andrew Hawkins both were like two of the nicest guys I've ever met, both like personally and professionally. So yeah, very surreal experience. It was a ton of fun getting to do that show that year, getting to just talk sports with them on a kind of like bi-weekly basis. So yeah, but very surreal. It's very surreal to log on to a video chat and see Joe Thomas like sitting on the other side, and you just kind of get to BS with him before the show starts. So yeah, not something I will forget for sure.
He's the kind of guy you definitely, if you ever get a chance to have a beer with, you would jump at that opportunity. I'm sure.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, no doubt. He'd grill you up something delicious. Yeah. Like I wish we very briefly discussed a Tomahawk, like little reunion, like at his enormous home in Wisconsin, where we just drink beers and eat whatever he's cooking. Hasn't happened yet, but that would probably be a top 5 day of my life for sure.
A little funny story about Joe Thomas. I recently had a couple people that said, "Man, Jason, you kind of look like Joe Thomas a little bit." And of course, I wore that as a badge of honor. And the other night, my wife was sitting there, and I said, "Hey, honey, a couple people said that I look like Joe Thomas," and she looked at me and she just goes, "Pfft," and then just turned and walked away.
Keeping you grounded, keeping you humble.
Yeah, you got to. Well, still staying with the technology, and I'm still amazed with Twitter and just how fast you can get news that's going on with the NFL. back when I was in high school, I remember running out to the driveway on Monday morning, grabbing that newspaper, getting the sports page, and checking the box line and the stats of all my players. Well, now, that's all right in front of us. It's at our fingertips as it's happening. I'll show you a little publication I used to get once a week when I was a kid. It's called Browns News Illustrated, and it used to come once a week. And that's how I used to get our news back then.
Yeah.
So, I think we're in that the sweet spot of the age of technology where guys like you and me, I'm just a podcaster, a new podcaster at that, but this is definitely the sweet spot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I am very fortunate to have social media help me get a job. So that to me is a very wild thing. And yeah, I mean, when I graduated, even when I graduated college in 2011, and the landscape was already starting to change pretty drastically in terms of Twitter was becoming bigger and digital media was becoming way bigger and all of that. I think, it's both good and it also has its challenges. It's, it's a tough, sports journalism, sports media is changing all the time, and the jobs that are available and what kind of jobs are changing all the time. But yeah, I mean, as far as, we focus on it, the Checkdown, Twitter and Instagram, and that's where everybody is. And it's a different medium, and it's a different way to sort of present and tell stories and stuff. But and that's something I've had to, I have a writing background, and so that has been and that was an adjustment for me last season, kind of like thinking socially and thinking that way. But yeah, I mean, it's, it's so instantaneous and it's so happening all the time, and people love it. And so it's wild to just kind of have a job that's basically running an Instagram and Twitter account, but I have no complaints in that area.
Well, awesome. Well, Jordan, let's get into some Browns talk. I want to respect your time. I know you got to get out of here, but we are a Browns podcast, so I wanted to talk some Browns with you. In your time of being a Browns fan, first of all, what's your earliest memory of being a Browns fan? How far back do you go?
Oh, love answering that question because it is Orlando Brown being hit in the eye with a flag in 1999 is probably my first Browns memory. Yeah, I mean, so I was born at the end of '88, so I really don't have any memories of late '80s, early Browns football. Like, I don't have any Bill Belichick memories. I don't really have any memories of, fortunately, like the team leaving and all that. I was still very young when that was all going on. So it really wasn't until '99 when they came back that I really was old enough to understand what was going on and really get into it and become a fan. So yeah, earliest memory is unfortunately that in the inaugural season. Really great stuff all around, having a blast. But so that's where it started. That was my introduction to what Browns football was going to be for me for many years of my life.
What an exciting time for Cleveland when the Browns did come back. I remember their first preseason game was against the Cowboys, and we actually won that game. And I just remember how excited I was. I imagine you were too, that the Browns are finally back, and it was a tough road. It's been a tough road, but it's looking like, times are getting better for us.
Yeah, hopefully. It's funny because, yeah, I mean, it really has been, there's been a couple blips. I think, you think about like 2007 I guess 2002, obviously, when they made the playoffs. That was a super fun season, even though, they lost a game in the playoffs they should have won, but, we don't have to get into that. But, and then 2007, you go 10-6, you don't make the playoffs, which is such a thing to happen to the Cleveland Browns. And then, 2014, whatever the year, I always forget exactly what season, but the year that they, Brian Hoyer and Kyle Shanahan, and they were in first place in the division very briefly, and they were 6-3. But that was a lot of fun. They had that huge Thursday night win over the Bengals that season on national television. And so, we've had very small tastes of, like, the smallest taste of success that you can have as a franchise. And I'm very hopeful that this year's team is going to look like what we all thought maybe last year's team was going to look like. And I think there's a huge opportunity for them to have a bounce back season. And I'm always more optimistic than pessimistic about stuff. So I feel I'm excited for the season. I think they hopefully have a better coaching staff in place, a better culture and environment in place that's going to allow the very talented players they have on this team to kind of be what we thought they were going to be. So, yeah, fingers crossed for that, because it's been time for them to have a good team for a very long time. So I hope that we're finally there.
No doubt. Let me ask you this. In your time of being a Browns fan, what are your two best moments and two of your worst moments of rooting for the brown and orange? Two of your best moments.
That's a really good question. Two of my best moments. Let's see. Unfortunately, there's not a ton to choose from. I think I look at that 2007 season very fondly because I was in college and I went to the University of Missouri. So I was nowhere near anybody that was rooting for any Cleveland sports teams. And we used to go to a bar, me and my roommates, every Sunday, and we all rooted for different teams. And I remember that season, that first game, they got destroyed by Pittsburgh and they ended up trading Charlie Fry. And I remember sitting there just being like, I don't even want to watch, what am I watching these games for? I was literally at a point where I was like, I don't even want to wear Browns gear to this bar. This is embarrassing. And I remember coming back, and I think that second game was they played the Bengals and it was that shootout. I think they scored 52 points. And I remember being like, what is happening? This is a blast. So that whole season, I just remember having so much fun because it was the first time the Browns looked like a team that had any idea what it was doing. And, you think about it to this day, that offense of Braylon Edwards and Kellen Winslow and Jamal Lewis, they had a very fun, legit offensive team. So I think that one that's more of a general full season thing that I really, really had a great time is. And honestly, who knows how it's going to work out and how long he'll be here. But when the trade for Odell Beckham happened, it was one of those things that was so surreal. It's a player that you don't ever think is going to be on your favorite team. And then when it happened, it was just, I remember that night, and I remember texting people and calling people and how much fun that was. So, I think it's a bit of an indictment that, there aren't a whole lot of other moments for me that are this is amazing because of just what the Browns are. But he's such a superstar, and you just don't think about the Browns as a team that has had a lot of those types of players since 1999. So, we'll see what happens. But that moment, that day that trade happened was quite the time. And then, man, worst moments. Worst moments is probably a bit easier. I think I'm trying to think of specifically. I do think that playoff game in 2002. I think probably for a lot of people, but specifically when Dennis Northcutt dropped the pass that would have probably secured the win for them. That was really tough. And I love Dennis I think it sucks because it overshadows the game he had. He played really well and had a really good game, but a lot of people just remember that he dropped that pass. That was really tough. That was I remember there was a video that came out where players from the Steelers were congratulating players on the Browns in between plays because they thought the game was over too. And it's hard. And that was so hard to watch after it. So that was really tough. And then, man, I'm trying to think if there's I have a random moments. Another one that stands out is that game they played the Patriots. They had Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon went off. I think it was one of the couple games he went for over 200 yards. And they were up multiple touchdowns, and they ended up giving up 17 points in a span of I don't know, a couple minutes. They let the Patriots receive an onside kick and all that stuff. So that I remember I was so angry I threw something across the room, and I don't often do that. So that was
okay. Sometimes you gotta do that. Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta do it. That was rough. And also, honestly, for being honest too, the most disappointed I've ever been probably was that game that Johnny Manziel, the first game he started, and it was against the Bengals, and everybody was hype, and they were like, let's go. And he, as we now know, didn't know any of the plays or have any idea what was going on in that game. They got destroyed, and he looked terrible. And I remember going from such elation and so excited about that start because you were like, all right, well, it's a Johnny Manziel era. Let's go. Let's see what this is all about. And it was just, that game went as poorly as you could have hoped for. So that one's up there too.
I think that the only guy that knew that Manziel wasn't ready was Shanahan.
Yes.
He had a big problem with us throwing him in there. He's like, this guy is not ready.
He knew.
He knew. It's interesting. You brought up two of your favorite moments. was the OBJ trade, and what was the other one?
Just the 07 season in general.
'07 season, yes. Those are moments where you just remember where you were when it happened. I'm always going to remember where I was when I heard that OBJ got traded to the Browns, and that Bengals game. Oh man, that high scoring Bengals game. I remember.
Oh man.
I was in a family friendly restaurant and I couldn't contain myself. I was asked to, quiet down a little bit, because I was a little too loud. But in that Steelers game, the playoff, that I was actually at that game, and I remember where I was when we found out that we made the playoffs and how excited everybody was. I was excited, and I immediately got on American Airlines and got some plane tickets to Pittsburgh. And man, I got snowballs thrown at me. It was a good time, but I can't believe that we lost that game. But
that one will always hurt. But hopefully we'll have some more playoff memories to come.
Better times ahead. All right, let's get into some current Browns talk. In the last couple of years, the Browns roster has, it was injected with real talent across the board by former GM John Dorsey. Last year, I thought the area that looked pieced together was the offensive line, and I know I'm not alone in that thought. Coupled with lousy coaching of Freddie Kitchens, and it just spelled disaster. This year, with the new regime, they identified that weakness of the offensive line, and they addressed it in free agency and the draft. My question to you is, what areas of our team are you confident and excited about? And what areas of our team do you think that we could still use some improvement?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you make a good point about the offensive line. I think that makes me feel, both with Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin, and hopefully shoring up both sides of those lines. I feel confident in the offense, and that's why last year was so hard, because it's like this is the most talent offensively I think they've had in a very long time.
Ever,
having
probably.
Kareem, probably ever. I mean, like having Kareem Hunt as a luxury second running back who was a rushing champion a handful of years ago, and having Jarvis and OBJ as your two receivers, and I'm expecting Baker to have a bounce back year and be better than he was last year. So I am confident in the offense, and I do think like Kevin Stefanski's system is going to help them tremendously as they sort of try to regroup from last year. So I do feel confident about the offense, because the line should be way better, and that should allow everything to sort of flow from there. I think what I feel least confident about is, obviously the linebacker group is pretty unproven. So I think it's probably a combination of the linebacker group where, you've got a couple of second-year guys, and then you've got, Jacob Phillips, who they drafted from LSU, and you just don't know about those guys, and with Schobert and Kirksey and guys that you at least knew kind of what you were getting. That's a pretty big question mark. And then, like the safety spot, I hope Grant Delpit is what he was in 2018 for LSU. And I hope the reason why he struggled last year was because of that ankle injury that he had. So, the Browns very well could have gotten a steal where they got Grant Delpit and he could ball out, and that would be great. But you just don't know. And if he does struggle, they've kind of pieced together that safety spot with a couple of guys they gave 1-year deals to. And, you've got Sheldrick Redwine, which nobody really knows what he is, and if he can be a contributor. So I would probably say both safety spots and the linebacking core is probably the areas I have the least amount of confidence in, and just because so much of it is unknown, and we don't know what kind of players these guys are yet. So those are probably defensively, on the defensive side, where I'm a little skeptical. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jordan. My take is it's going to take them a minimum of 5 to 6 games to even gel in the linebacker position. So hopefully our offense can carry us, but our defense is a wild card, but it is something that I'm looking at that could possibly carry this team when it gets into the December months, cold months. I am excited about our defense, and I think that, it could be an area where, people are not thinking that we're going to be that good, but maybe they can surprise some people.
Yeah, I think, when you do look at the defense, the back end is maybe a little shaky, but they probably have one of the better defensive lines in all of the NFL. And that obviously can make a huge impact on, not having to have their cornerbacks, be in coverage as long because they're getting to the quarterback and not forcing, I think Denzel's very good. Greedy, I think obviously needs to have a better season, but I think he's very talented. And then you look at, a guy like Terrence Mitchell, who I think is a really good kind of nickel cornerback. So yeah, I do think like they have a huge strength, and that is the defensive line, and that is Myles Garrett, who's going to be motivated and ready to play. And so yeah, I think to that point, yeah, it's hopefully that defensive line anchors the defense and makes it so that secondary doesn't have to be in coverage for longer than they probably need to be.
Yeah, I mean, the whole goal of the defensive line is just to create chaos, right? And to make the quarterback make bad decisions, and that'll help our linebackers and our cornerbacks and safety. So I think you're right, man. It's going to be definitely something to watch for sure.
It is, and I was just going to say too, I hope the whole team after last season is just like pissed and just like that was not us, and they did a lot of talking and they had a lot of hype and they fell on their face, and I hope that they feel that, and I hope they're pissed about that, and I hope they come out and play like that this season. So that's another hope of mine.
You had mentioned Jacob Phillips. It just seems like there's something special about that guy. He's from LSU. LSU, they just pump out defensive players. And we got some LSU on the defense, with Greedy Williams, Grant Delpit, and now Jacob Phillips. Is there anybody else? But yeah. The LSU, I like that in our defense. I do. I am fond of that.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's kind of LSU North, as it's sort of, you got OBJ and Jarvis on the offensive side, and you got three guys on the defensive side. Yeah, Jacob Phillips is interesting because of anybody in the draft, he was actually the one that, I mean, at least if you look at some analytical stuff, that he was really the only one that got sort of overdrafted. Like a lot of people thought that the Browns probably could have got him later than they took him. But I think what they saw in him was a guy that is a very sure tackler, and someone that has played in, I think they value the play in the SEC conference and against kind of top competition and that experience. So yeah, I mean, I think, Jacob can't handle where he gets drafted. That's not up to him. So he's just got to come in and be that sure tackler and be that guy that, is, not going to be blowing tackles and getting run over and anything like that. So yeah, I'm intrigued by him because it sort of was a consensus that the Browns probably took him a little too high, but if it pans out, it doesn't matter. So, we'll see.
That's well said. Good point, Jordan. All right, I just have a couple more things to go over, and we'll get you out of here. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski. And what I really want to talk about is, to me, one of the things I'm really interested in when this season starts and training camp, when that starts, which it's starting now, is the relationship development between Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski. It's going to be exciting to watch. If you had to just sit back and think just for a second, what current QB and coach chemistry in the league do you think they will most look like between, Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield? Example, Belichick, Brady. I know they're not together now, but they had a long, good relationship. Peyton, Breeze, Reed, Mahomes, Kingsbury, Murray, Tomlin, Roethlisberger. Who do you think they'll look like as far as relationship-wise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like that. I think a couple of those guys you mentioned are sort of, I think in a perfect world is what I hope they look like. I think, even when you think about Sean McVay and Jared Goff, Jared Goff, I think very much benefits from that system in LA, but benefits from having a coach that he is in constant communication with, and he knows the system they're running front and back, and that helps him a lot. I think, so if there's an aspect of that, sort of that relationship and understanding that system, because I do think Kevin Stefanski does have obviously a very distinct sort of system that he's bringing to Cleveland, maybe more so than some other coaches. And then if you look at Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, they're very forward thinking in how they run an offense. And, Cliff came with a lot of college concepts and stuff that he wanted to kind of inject, and they, a lot of it worked, and I think is only going to continue to work. You add in a DeAndre Hopkins and another year for Kyler. So I would love for it to look some sort of combination of, a Cliff and Kyler in terms of being innovative on offense and doing fun and exciting stuff on offense, but then on the flip side, having Baker having that sort of knowledge of Kevin's system and really understanding how to run it. So then you look like a Jared Goff, who is just not so much last year, but 2 seasons ago was just masterful running Sean McVay's system in LA. So I think it'd probably be a combination of that's more of like, I hope this is what they look like, but I do think there's very much the possibility that is what they end up looking like.
It's an interesting dynamic to really look at and pay attention to. Kevin Stefanski, he's an interesting coach, and it was an interesting hire. And I think it's going to ultimately benefit Baker to be in his system, right? So, but I think one of the things I'm going to look at is Kevin Stefanski is going to demand respect, but in a player's coach kind of way. I don't think he's going to tiptoe around issues. I think if there's a problem, he's going to handle it. He's going to handle it the right way. He's very smart and he's intelligent. So Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield, I think it's going to be a great relationship. And like I said before, I think Baker is going to really benefit from Stefanski's system. I think a lot of players will, but Baker is at the forefront.
Yeah, it's a huge year for him, and I think he's aware of that. So I am hopeful that, yes, the system will make things a little bit easier for him in year 3 as well. Obviously Stefanski loves to use tight ends, and a lot of what tight ends do are just make it easy on 3rd and 5 to just, settle down in an area and be wide open and be that guy that, you can just, he's going to be there, and you can move the chains with him. And I do think that utilization of those tight ends, a lot like, what the Browns were doing in Freddie Kitchens. Well, in that year where Freddie Kitchens became the offensive coordinator, where they were running a lot of kind of 12 personnel and that sort of thing, which Kevin Stefanski is going to, use a good amount of. So, I'm optimistic. I don't think there's any way Baker is as bad as what he looked like last year. Like, I don't think that's what kind of quarterback he is. I think there were a lot of factors that played into how bad he was. And I think having a system like this is going to allow him hopefully to have a big bounce back year, because he has to have it. It's a pretty pivotal year for him. So
totally agree. It has to happen this year. And I agree with you. I think it will happen. Just seeing what we've seen from Baker during the offseason with the workouts and how he's looking now. And we heard the story about, with Alex Van Pelt asking Baker to change his footwork, and he did, and he looks fantastic. There was a video that surfaced a couple days ago, about that. So yeah, I think Baker's head is right. And to your point, this is a big year for Baker, and I think he knows that.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. It's going to be, again, like any Brown season, there's going to be a lot to look at and a lot to pay attention to, and a lot of kind of stuff that's could go one way or the other. But I do think they are in a much better spot now with this coaching staff than what happened last year, which was quite frankly a huge disaster. So at least I feel good about that.
Do you think that, the Tennessee Titans were a great story last year? Unfortunately, their story started by thumping the Browns, and they went far in the playoffs. I meant to look this up before you got on, but weren't they one game away from the Super Bowl?
They were. They lost to the Chiefs. Yeah.
They lost to the Chiefs, so they're one game away from the Super Bowl. Do you think this year's Browns can be last year's Chiefs? And let me just put this on there. There's a kind of a parallel with it, because last year, nobody was looking at Tennessee. Everybody thought the Browns were going to beat Tennessee, which didn't obviously happen. This year, the Browns play the Ravens week 1, and nobody's really looking at the Browns. Everybody's just kind of saying, we're going to lose the first game, but then they look at the rest schedule. Do you think that it's possible that the Browns could be last year's Tennessee Titans?
Yeah, I think the possibility is certainly there. I think maybe the Titans were even more under the radar than the Browns are right now. I still think, like, when you have OBJ and Jarvis and Baker, like, there's just personalities on a team that are going to make noise and people are going to pay attention to them. But I do think, to your point, that, I don't know if we know what to expect from them, and I don't think if the rest of the league knows what to expect of them. I do think there's a parallel in that we'll see how much Kevin Stefanski runs the ball. I think, it'll be interesting to see how much of his influence in Minnesota was from Mike Zimmer, who was demanding the ball to be run, and how much, but I do think he's going to lean more on the run probably than obviously Freddie Kitchens did. And obviously Tennessee, a huge part of Tennessee's offense was Derrick Henry and playing off of Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill was way under the radar and came out and played very well. So yeah, I will say that I think the Browns are not quite as under the radar. I don't think anybody expected really much of anything from the Titans last year. I think maybe there's a little more expectation on the Browns, but I think there is a chance for them to sneak up on some people because of how dysfunctional they looked last season. And I think that since that's the most recent video we have of this team, teams are probably going to be feeling that way. So I do think they have an opportunity to, especially opening up against the MVP of the league last year and a very good Baltimore Ravens team. They have a chance to surprise some people. So I hope so. We'll see.
I think Nick Chubb has a chip on his shoulder. I don't think he would ever admit it because he's the ultimate team guy, but I don't think that sat well with him getting that rushing title stripped from him the last week of the year. I think Derrick Henry went off like 200 and something yards the last game of the year, and it just got taken from him. So I don't think that sits well with him. And I look for a huge dose of Nick Chubb this year.
Yeah, Nick's gonna have a huge year. I think it's. I think if I could guarantee one thing about this season, it is that Nick Chubb is going to have a really big year. So that barring any injuries, hopefully, and knock on wood, he's something special. And I think this offense is going to be tailor made for him as well. So I think that's only going to benefit him.
Well, Jordan, this has been fun, man, and I appreciate the time. I want to get you out of here because I want to respect your time. Anything you want to plug? Where can the listeners find you at?
Yeah, so you can just follow us. Very simple, at the Checkdown. We're on Twitter and Instagram. We're on Facebook too, but main places Instagram and Twitter, and especially during game days, fun account to follow. We have the first rights to post highlights since we are owned by the NFL. We have that ability to be the first account that's posting any sort of highlights on game days. So that's fun, and that's a fun reason to follow us. And as always, I try my best to insert as much Browns content as I can into the day. So check us out at the Checkdown, and I'm personally on Twitter at Zirm, CLEVEZIRM. If you want to follow me there as well. Come get involved, and hopefully it's going to be a weird but hopefully fun season. So that's where you guys
absolutely. I follow both accounts, Jordan, and expect a lot of retweets from the Browns Huddle Pod and the Browns Huddle.
So, much appreciated. Very much appreciated.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and maybe we could do this again during the season.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Go Browns.